Get out. Paying the mortgage doesn't make you blood, my father said coldly on Thanksgiving. Mom whispered, You're just jealous of your brother's success. I looked at them and said, Then let him pay the $8,500 in bills. That night, I shut everything down. The police knocked. Mom cried. Sister begged. And finally, I did what I should have long ago. So the next day I was completely bombarded with 123 missed calls from pretty much every relative you can imagine. Thanksgiving dinner was supposed to be chill, you know? But nope. My dad just leaned back in his chair, glaring at me like I was some random stranger who wandered into his house by accident. Get out. Paying the mortgage doesn't make you family, he said, his voice as cold as a freezer. I just stared, totally in shock. The turkey on my plate was untouched, and there I was, fists clenched under the table, feeling a tight burn in my chest. Not from the wine, but from those hurtful words. My mom wouldn't even look at me. She just muttered, You're only jealous of your brother's success. And there sat Eric, my brother, across the table, all comfy in his perfectly tailored suit, sipping wine like he was royalty. He's always been the golden child, the business genius who could do no wrong in their eyes. But it was me who'd been footing their bills for years. I was the one who bailed them out when the mortgage was overdue, covering $8,500 in utilities, groceries, and credit card debts just last month. While Eric showed off his success all over social media, I kept my cool and suggested he cover those expenses instead. Silence. Total, awkward silence. Eric suddenly found his mashed potatoes super interesting, and my dad looked pissed. My mom finally glanced up with teary eyes, like I was the bad guy. I stood up slowly, the chair scraping loudly on the floor, and said, You've made your choice. So have I. And then I just walked out, leaving them in their supposedly perfect world. But that was just the start. As I stepped outside, the cold November wind hit my face, but it didn't sting as much as their words. This wasn't new to me. I'd been silently carrying the weight of their debts for years. It started small, helping with Dad's medical bills after surgery, then covering mortgage payments when they fell behind, fixing Mom's car, and even giving Eric's startup some extra cash to survive its first year. I always paid up, while Eric boasted every holiday about investors and expansion plans, with my parents eating it all up. Your brother is building something amazing, Mom would say, refilling her wine. Dad would chime in with, Not everyone's cut out to be an entrepreneur. Forget the fact that Eric's business was bleeding money, and his so-called success was built on credit cards and my financial support. They ignored that part, but always saw me as the responsible one, their personal ATM who owed them everything. You live alone, no kids. What do you need money for? Mom said last month after I cleared their overdue property taxes. You're lucky you can help. Oh yeah, super lucky. Lucky to work 70-hour weeks in IT, while Eric blew cash on private coaching and luxury vacations with his third girlfriend in 2 years. Lucky to skip vacations, drive a 10-year-old car, and use my own house down payment savings so they wouldn't lose theirs. And if I tried to step back, the guilt trips would roll in. You know we raised you right. Eric just needs a little more time. Be patient. But tonight was different. It wasn't the insults that hit me. It was the flat-out rejection. They finally said out loud what they'd been hinting at for years. I wasn't really part of the family. My blood, my sacrifices, they didn't matter. I was only useful as long as my wallet was open. The calls started that night. First, Mom was all, Sweetheart, don't overreact. Your father didn't mean it that way. I didn't bother to pick up. Eric called twice, but didn't leave any messages. Typical. By morning, I had missed 8 calls. By noon, it was up to 14. Then the texts started rolling in. Eric, look, we all said stuff we didn't mean. Just come back, we need to talk. Mom, can you help cover the electricity bill? It's due today. Dad, be a man. Don't let one dinner ruin everything. That last one made me laugh. Ruin everything? They'd manage that all on their own. By the evening, Eric sent the most shameless message yet. Hey bro, got an unexpected credit card charge this month. Can you cover it? It's just temporary. Just temporary, like the mortgage, the groceries, the property taxes, the private school tuition for Eric's kids that I never agreed to but somehow ended up paying for. But the last straw was what they tried next. 2 days after Thanksgiving, I checked my online banking and froze. There was a new credit card opened under my name with multiple charges for thousands on luxury hotel stays, expensive dinners, and electronics. I knew instantly it was Eric. My hands shook, not from fear, but pure anger. He didn't even try to hide it, using my social security number, my info, my credit. That night, I sat in my dark apartment staring at my phone, my mind racing. It wasn't just about being used, it felt like a complete betrayal. So, this whole mess started with betrayal. My own sibling. They lied, stole from me, and totally broke my trust. I was so furious, my breathing got all slow and my jaw was clenched tight. If they were looking for a fight, well, they had definitely found one. I couldn't even sleep that night, didn't even try. Instead, I stayed up making calls to my bank, hit up my lawyer, and contacted the credit bureau. I locked down my credit, disputed the charges, and filed a fraud report. It was obvious who the culprit was, my brother. By morning, my phone was blowing up as if everyone knew I was about to go nuclear. Eric was trying to patch things up, pleading, "Call me, it's not what you think." And then there were Mom and Dad, Mom begging not to do anything crazy, and Dad accusing me of making a mountain out of a molehill. But nope, this time I was standing my ground. 3 days later, they all showed up at my doorstep, pounding like it was the end of the world. "Open the door, son," my dad shouted. "Please, honey, we just need to talk," my mom pleaded, her voice already cracking. Eric was banging harder, insisting, "You don't understand what you're doing." Oh, but I did. I opened the door slowly, giving them a cold, "You have 10 minutes." They piled in, Mom already in tears, Dad looking mad but trying to play peacemaker, and Eric looking like he was about to bolt. Eric started with a shaky, "Listen, there's been a misunderstanding." "Yeah, right, a misunderstanding that led to $27,000 in charges." "That's not a misunderstanding, Eric. That's a crime." My dad tried to take charge. "We are family. You don't call the cops on family." Oh, but suddenly, we're family. Last week, he was telling me to shove off, saying that paying the mortgage doesn't make me part of the family. My mom was crying, "We didn't mean it. We were upset." Yeah, they meant it all right. They meant it when they called me jealous, when they let me foot the bills for years without a thank you, and when they thought I'd just let it slide as Eric racked up charges under my name. Eric's calm facade finally broke. I was going to pay it back. I just needed time. Business is tight right now. I almost laughed at him. Business? Eric, your business has been tight for years. You live in a fancy apartment you can't afford, drive a leased BMW, and wear shoes that cost a fortune, all while crying, "Broke to me." Dad slammed his hand on the table, yelling, "Enough! You're tearing this family apart." No, they had done that long before. "You enabled this, letting Eric suck me dry," I shot back. Eric's face turned ugly, and he accused me of being jealous, claiming that's why I was doing this. Jealous? Of pretending to be successful while burning through my bank account? I worked my tail off, skipping vacations and driving a beat-up car just to keep afloat. "You're not successful, Eric. You're a fraud, and starting tomorrow, you'll live like one." He was stunned. "What are you talking about?" I'm pressing charges. I already filed a police report. Identity theft, bank fraud, the whole shebang. Mom practically collapsed into a chair. You can't do this. What will happen to Eric, to us? But I was done. That's not my problem anymore. You made your choices. Eric tried to lunge at me, but Dad held him back. You want to ruin your own flesh and blood? Dad barked. You ruined yourselves, I replied, sick of being their cash cow and punching bag. The room echoed with their cries and desperate negotiations, but my decision was made. I opened the door. Get out. Next time we talk, it'll be in court. The cops came the next morning. Detective Reynolds, all business, took my statement. I handed over everything: credit card statements, transaction screenshots, emails, even Eric, as pathetic messages begging for one last bailout. The case was solid. Given the amount involved, Reynolds said, flipping through the evidence, this won't just be a family matter. Fraud and identity theft don't just get swept under the rug. I nodded. I want to press full charges. And that was that. By the end of the week, Eric was officially under investigation. I watched it unfold like a train wreck you know is coming but can't stop. The fallout was intense. The family group chat blew up. Mom, you didn't have to involve the police. This could have stayed between us. Dad, you're ruining your brother's future for what, a few bucks? Eric, you're such a traitor. You've always hated me. Congrats on your revenge. Mom, think about how this looks to the neighbors, to the church, to everyone. Every single message dripped with guilt, manipulation, and desperation. It was truly a mess. For ages, I let that kind of emotional manipulation get to me, but not anymore. I didn't respond at all. But of course, they weren't done. 2 days later, my parents rocked up at my apartment. This time, my dad didn't even bother with the doorbell. He just started banging on the door hard enough to get my neighbor to peek out and ask him to chill. My mom was there too, crying like we were in some over-the-top drama. Open up, my dad yelled. You can't hide behind the door forever. I cracked the door open just a bit and said, There's nothing to talk about, in the calmest voice I could manage. My dad was fuming. You're making a mistake, he growled. You've always been so ungrateful. After everything we've done for you. I couldn't help but laugh, a bitter kind of laugh. Everything you've done? I paid your mortgage for 5 years. I covered your property taxes, groceries, bills, even bailed out your so-called Golden Sons debts. You didn't do anything for me. You just used me. My mom chimed in, her voice all shaky. He's your brother. You're sending him to jail. I snapped back. No, he sent himself there when he stole my identity. If you cared, you'd have made him take responsibility ages ago. But you didn't. You just enabled him, as usual. My dad's face went beet red. If you go through with this, he hissed, you're dead to us. I said, I've been dead to you for years, and shut the door in their faces. Weeks rolled by, and the investigation picked up speed. Turns out Eric hadn't just scammed me, but pulled this stunt on 3 others too, some shady investors who finally spoke up when the cops got involved. Boom! Grand jury indictment, multiple felony charges, federal court, and all. He was staring down some serious prison time. The trial hadn't even started yet, but our whole family network was already falling apart, tangled in their own web of lies. The most surprising part? My relatives started flipping sides. First, my aunt, my dad's sister, gave me a private call. You did the right thing, she whispered. We all knew how your parents always covered for Eric. They never appreciated you. Then my cousin reached out. Then another uncle. They all confessed they'd seen this coming, but were too scared to say a word before. He was the golden boy, my uncle said, and nobody ever told him no. Not your parents, not even your grandma. It was weird. After years of watching me drown, only when Eric was truly exposed did they dare to speak up. But the biggest shock? Eric's ex-wife, Kelly, called me a few weeks after the indictment. I almost ignored the call, but curiosity got the better of me. "Thanks," she said right away. "For what?" I asked. "For standing up to him. I wish I'd done it years ago." She left Eric not only because he cheated, but because he financially abused her too. He cleaned out her savings, forged her name on loan papers, and left her drowning in debts she barely escaped. "He destroyed everyone he touched," she said, voice quivering, "and your folks just kept acting like nothing was wrong." Her words hit home what I'd suspected, but never fully grasped. Eric wasn't just a pampered brat, he was a predator. And my parents? They stayed loyal to him right to the end. The last time I spoke to them was just before Eric's arraignment. My dad called. "If you testify, you'll ruin this family," he said flatly. "No," I replied. "Eric ruined this family. I'm just cleaning up the mess." Silence. Then he dropped a line that had haunted me all my life. "You were always the jealous one." For the first time, those words didn't sting. I just smiled and said, "And you were always blind." Then I hung up for good. When Eric stood in court shackled, wearing that prison jumpsuit, I didn't feel happy or sorry. I felt free. Free from their manipulation. Free from the guilt trips. Free from being their personal ATM. The judge handed him a tough sentence: 7 years in federal prison plus restitution. Eric didn't look my way once as his fate was read. My parents sat in the back, stone-faced, like they were mourning a fallen hero. But the truth was plain in their eyes. Rage mixed with shame. That night, I went back to my apartment feeling lighter than ever. As I poured myself a drink, my phone buzzed. A simple text from my aunt. "You did what none of us had the courage to do. I'm proud of you." I stared at that message for a long, long time. And for the first time in forever, I let myself believe it. 6 months have passed since I testified against my brother. 6 months since my parents cut me off for not protecting the family name. 6 months since I stopped being their financial hostage. For the first time in my adult life, I know peace. No more late-night calls demanding cash. No more guilt trips disguised as concern. No more watching my hard-earned dollars disappear into someone else's mess. I wake up every morning in my small, so, here's the deal. I finally paid off my apartment, and it feels like I've dropped a ton of weight. No debts, no strings attached. I've got my life back, and wow, it's a game changer. Meanwhile, the world keeps turning. Eric's stuck behind bars for all the dodgy business he was running, and his empire? Well, it's just lawsuits and unpaid bills now. The news made a quick buzz about it, something like, "Young entrepreneur charged with multi-level fraud." But you know how these things go. Scandals don't last long. My parents, they're off in their little world of denial, only talking to people who still think Eric is some kind of misguided hero. I've heard through the grapevine that my mom still throws these dinners where Eric's name is mentioned, like he's a victim of some big misunderstanding. My dad spends his time complaining about betrayal to anyone who'll listen. But that's not my story anymore. Then one morning, I got this email from Kelly, Eric's ex. It was unexpected. She starts off with, "I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I just wanted to say something. Thank you, not just for standing up to Eric, but for surviving them." She totally got it. This whole thing had been about breaking free, like cutting invisible chains. A few weeks later, there was another surprise at my door. My aunt, who I hadn't seen since the trial. She came in looking a bit nervous, playing with her wedding ring, and told me my grandmother had passed away. That hit hard. Grandma was the only one in the family who treated me like a real person, not just an asset. My aunt handed me an envelope from Grandma. Inside, there was a letter saying, "You were always the only one who saw the truth. Don't feel guilty for choosing yourself." And under that, a copy of the will. She left me everything: house, savings, inheritance, all the stuff my parents thought was theirs. She wanted me to have a fresh start. In that moment, I felt it: closure, not guilt. They'd taken so much from me over the years: my peace, my money, my self-respect. But now, life was giving something back. So here I am, standing in front of Grandma's old house, ready to turn it into my home. For the first time in ages, I feel powerful. Not the kind of power that controls others, but the kind that lets you live fearlessly and without guilt. My phone's buzzing with missed calls from my parents, trying to get back into my life now that they know about the inheritance. But I'm done with that. They lost that privilege a long time ago. I'm finally free. If you haven't yet, please subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more crazy real-life stories happening around you.